Alex Carabin put on the uniform, and and Haas and Sampson. The players change your life when you have such special people.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. The support I've been given on this podcast has been tremendous. It's all because of you. A special shout out to my everydayers. Phenomenal follows on YouTube, socials, everything in between. The audio podcast is doing well. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering both UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage because I love it and you deserve it. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I won't lie, after playing that full clip or partial clip of a question I asked Dan, that eventually he was already emotional, so I made him cry, but he legitimately was already in tears, and I know why, because I had a hard time keeping it together in that press conference. My fandom usually takes over my impartial or partiality, whatever. I don't even know how to use that word. That's how cement head I am. But I have a hard time with loss because I do see the world the way Dan Hurley sees the world, where when you win, you're in heaven, and when you lose, it's there's this excruciating pain. And yes, I know I didn't play. I know that there's not a monetary value to UConn winning on my end. In fact, typically when they lose, I probably make more money on my podcast, but I don't care. Like, that's not why I do this. I have made this switch in my life where I'm doing something that I love. And I'm doing it because I love it, not because I get to go to games or not because I get to cover it, or for me to be in Raleigh and people to reach out and say hi, and or when I go up to stores or whatever, Hartford, other places next year, maybe Tampa with the women this year. We'll see. That's still going on. But it just stings. It's hard because of what the team has given us over the years and what this team in particular gave us in 24-25, what they gave each other and what they gave the University of Connecticut. UConn fell to Florida 77-75 in a game that felt like we were punching up to start the game. And even Todd Golden in his press conference said, we knew that their championship pedigree, and the players said this too, they weren't going to be bothered by us getting out to any kind of a fast start, because they did. I think they led by 5 relatively early, and UConn chipped away, and then they started to, it became like a back and forth affair once. I think it was about 20-19 UConn, and then they hit a 2 or a 3. But they were in control for, I would say, 32 minutes of this game. And for the vast majority of the afternoon, we'd look like the better team. And yet, March has a cruel way of reminding us how fragile all of this is. One bounce, one possession, one moment, and it kind of all slips away. And in the case of UConn, we'll get into the key moments. It was a series of events when it felt like they were in total control of the game that really ultimately led to the demise. Because they're really not lazy, but the real simplistic way to look at this, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being simplistic. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best. It was 100% about Walter Clayton Jr., but he wasn't the reason why we lost. He was a big part of why. But I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about those key moments in the second and third segment. You could see it on Dan Hurley's face at the buzzer. What eyes welling up. The frustration of all of the the last 3 minutes of the game. Just some disappointment, frustration. He even said, some crazy stuff out in the tunnel that got picked up by media outlets, and of course they ran with it because he's Dan Hurley, and whatever he says is like, he's such a monster, and he's tainting the game and all this other crap. If you want to follow that stuff, if you want to deal with the clickbait, that's cool. I will take authentic Dan Hurley over fake ass insert coach's name there. And I hope you appreciate that about me too, because I am wrong a lot of the times. Sometimes I get it right. In fact, I almost got the score perfectly right when I did my pregame show with Locked On Gators with Andrew. I was wrong on who would win, but I did say UConn would make it close. And I said that I think I said it's 74-73 UConn. So a couple points here and there, and that's the score. His frustration is about competition, and out of love for the game, love for his players, love for what they built, and not wanting to see it come to an end. Because this wasn't just about chasing another banner. This is about a bond that, he's forged with Alex and Samson and Hassan over the last 3 or 4 years, between the coaches and, the young men who believed in his vision, and those players that were in that press conference that was really difficult to get through with tears and, missed opportunities. Alex Garabin, Samson Johnson, Hassan Diarra, just wonderful kids, phenomenal seasons. Samson Johnson, I can't say enough about your effort, man. Psh. This Dumbo is calling for you to be benched and go back to a role of more of the sixth man, the backup center. I couldn't have been more wrong, man. Like, I love Terrace Reed, and I think he's super talented. And like most of us, I was seduced by the shiny new object when I should have really dug deep the way these players did and said, you know what, Mark, stick to your convictions. Samson's working his ass off. He's a warrior. He's the heart and soul of this team. And, trust him the way a national championship coach and the staff trust him, because as Dan has shown, he may be loyal, but he's not stupid. The easiest thing in coaching is to pull a guy when he's playing poorly. So, of which he did sometimes with Samson. But tell you what, man, the Samson Johnson that I watched play basketball on Sunday afternoon in Raleigh, North Carolina, was a man possessed. He had 9 rebounds at the half. He finished with a double-double. Was outweighed, sometimes outmanned, and blocking shots. He didn't foul out. I thought he played a phenomenal game. Toughness, sacrifice, his body, unshakable pride in wearing this UConn jersey. And now their time at UConn comes to a close in a way that no one wanted, and it just flat out hurts. It's okay to sit with that hurt. I did it all day on Sunday. I'm taping this late on Sunday night so that you guys see it in Monday morning. So I'm going to feel it for the next few days. I definitely shed some tears on the way home just because I'm an emotional guy. It means a lot to me. Just because you cover something, you can't turn into a robot. And I kind of talked about this a little bit at the halftime show about, guys, and maybe this is just because they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And there's no disrespect here. Like, I don't agree with covering sports unless you love it, because what it ends up being is you turn into nothing matters to you anymore. Like, the type of love that sports in general has given me, it's basically given me a life. When I was playing tennis professionally, either in poorly at that, it gave me a purpose. And then coaching in tennis gave me a purpose. And then as I got older, that purpose kind of waned, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And I've been searching for that next purpose in life. And the one thing that I always would come back to is wanting to cover my first love, which is basketball. I wasn't a good enough player to play it for a living, and I never got into coaching full time or even kind of on a small level, like a couple times, where I would help out at a boys club or even down here at Prolific Park, where Ricky Prohl has a place that's kind of like a boys club. And turning this into a career has been in a full-time one at that, has been the absolute renaissance or love of my life outside of my wife and my kids. So there's no shame in wearing your emotions on your sleeve, as Dan Hurley did. I saw some really bad takes about that, as if because you're a man, you can't cry or you can't show emotion. I mean, what are we doing? What's life without having emotion? What's life without feeling and caring about things? So I say all that to say there's no shame with how this season ended. So only gratitude. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Samson. Thank you, Hassan. And thank you, Coach Hurley and your staff, for giving us another season full of belief, of pride, and joy. And we're going to take a break. Feeling that lost sleep? 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA Tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up your busy schedule, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all these tournament actions, getting ready for these games, and it keeps me active. My 5 Hour Energy keeps me awake and ready to go, especially even for the next day. And it's whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today. Stay energized. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Want to take a second to talk about a coaching masterclass by Dan Hurley, without a doubt. Here is a guy who they had to scheme up for this game because even in defeat, especially in defeat, what we saw from him was exactly what I said, a coaching masterclass. For almost 35 minutes, Hurley had UConn executing at a level that was surgical. They just didn't make shots. The spacing, the defensive rotations, the way he exploited matchups and used their action to get Florida in rotation on defense and chasing. Even I think it was Will Richard who said that they felt a little out of sorts in the first half, that they, had to do with a lot of the championship pedigree. And he really put his players, the staff, 100%, put his players in the best possible position to win this game. I felt every timeout they used was strategic, almost sometimes right before a media timeout to give them a little more juice because they was trying to give Aiden 5-6 minutes to give Haas, more time down the stretch, get Solo his legs so that he could hit some clutch shots. As we'll see, he did hit a clutch shot down 3 to tie the game late. We're going to break down all of it. So first things first, when you look at the box score, as we're going to do right now, I'm not going to put it on the screen because there's no point, but positive first, they shot 86% from the free throw line. I will say they did miss, and this is a nitpicky thing, but Solo and Aiden both missed one free throw each on a 3-point foul. Lose by 2. Those are the two, those 2 points. Terrace Reed missed a free throw. When you're playing a number 1 seed that was almost a 10-point favorite, you can nitpick all you want, but the bottom line is they needed to be perfect, and they almost were. They weren't quite perfect. And that is kind of the story of the season, right? The up and down part of the year. Great halves, great 27 minutes, great 12-minute stretches, but never truly a full 40-minute game. And they almost got it today. But again, almost isn't good enough, especially against a team like Florida that has this kind of talent and this kind of firepower. Minutes distribution was similar, that is, as always is. But these are the huge stats. Liam McNeely was 2 of 8 from 3. The last 3 was meaningless. It cut the lead to 2 when they really were down 5. Alex Caravan was 2 of 9 from 3. He did hit one really big 3 to give them a 5-point lead late, but had 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Liam also 22 points overall because he made all his free throws, 8 for 8. Would love to have seen him go to the hole a little more. However, I think that was part of the game plan. But towards the end of the game, the referees really weren't calling anything like as on a drive. And we'll get to that Alex Caravan layup that Dan was what the viral video that him talking about, hey, I hope they don't F you like they F'd us to Baylor, was him basically talking about that, that he essentially felt like that in key moments that the whistle was poor. You could argue that. You could argue that it was. You could argue that it wasn't. We played well. I think the whistle was fair. I do think I agree with Dan. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a homer. I'm literally saying that because in the sequence that I'm about to play here in a minute, that missed foul call when they're up, I think it was 2 or 1. 2. When they're up 2, 61-59, you have Alex going to the hoop, contacted, missed the layup. They get a rebound, and the subsequent action that happened after that was 5 quick points for Florida. So in Dan's eyes, you're going, okay, so we're up 2. We have the ball. We have Alex going to the free throw line. He's likely going to make at least one of those to give us a 1-point lead. If he makes both, then you're up 4. Now Florida gets a little bit tighter versus down 2. And those moments, those lack of foul calls late. And you could flip it on the other side where Elijah Martin went up for a dunk and looked like he got contacted. They didn't call it. He missed the dunk. UConn got a rebound. It turned out a foul, and they were shooting free throws on the other end. So you can do that for both sides. So, Florida fans, it is what it is. I get it. But this is the sequence, by the way, if you want to see it. I'm going to show it and kind of break it down. So it's 61-59. There's 3 minutes left. Walter Clayton, just absolute stud, makes that. Then Liam on the very next possession tries to go by. He gets stripped. Didn't look like a foul there. They get a dunk the other way. And, all of a sudden, instead of shooting free throws up 2, you're down 3. And you needed this next play from solo ball to stay in the game with just under 2 minutes to go. He kind of fumbles this, regroups, and just buries his 3. And that tied it at 64 with 2:09 to go. So from that point, I still was feeling pretty good, but we're still kind of like, reeling a little bit because now we're chasing. Florida comes down, hits another 3, Walter Clayton. They go up 67-64. I think Liam missed a 3 to tie. And then that's all she wrote, pretty much. Then Walter Clayton hits another 3. They go up 6. They actually strip a ball. They missed a couple of free throw rebounds when it was 65. Actually, before the second 3 from Walter Clayton, or really the first 3, it was 64 all, and they fouled Alex Condon. And he misses the first. He makes the first one, misses the second one, and looks like they're going to grab the rebound. It gets punched out. They end up getting fouled again, making 2 more free throws, and then the next time they come down, Walter Clayton, it's that dagger 3. They had opportunities. Let's just put it that way. So the sequence of events really doesn't matter. Once they got down like 6 points, it hurt. And those were the key moments. I want to go back though to a moment. I don't have a video of it, but if you go to the play-by-play, there was a key moment, and Dan talked about it in the press conference. Don't have it, but he did talk about in the second half. They started incredibly well in the second half. You get a dunk from Sampson. You get 2 dunks from Sampson right away. You're up 4. Then they come down and miss 1 of 2. So now you're up 3. You have the ball. Hassan makes a layup and gets fouled, makes the free throw. So now you're up 6. And this is the start of the second half. You're up 6-1 in the second half. They get a rebound on a Elijah Martin missed free throw. He missed 2 free throws. So you get a Terrace Reed defensive rebound. Terrace misses a layup. Then they get a rebound. They get a foul on Alex Caravan. He misses the first one. This is Walter Clayton, their best player. Great free throw shooter. Then he makes the second one. So they're still up 5. On the very next play, they get a rebound. They get Walter Clayton makes another free throw because it was on a three-point play. So now it's 38-34. Alex makes a layup. They're up 40-34. We get a turnover. You know, Liam McNeely steal. Then he misses a layup. So there was a fast break where I thought he got hit on the arm. They didn't call it. He misses the layup. Will Richard makes a 3-point shot. And there was a moment there. I'm trying to find the sequence where it might have been at 38-32. Yes. Where Solo had a 3-pointer to put us up by 9, and he missed it, and he was wide open. Yep. So it was right after Hassan gets the 3-point play. Then they shot it quick, almost within like 3 seconds of, or 10 seconds of the next possession. So it was a Terrace Reed defensive rebound. They run a play for Solo. He gets a wide open look, just like it was not top of the key, but just to the left of it, and he misses. Right there at 38-32, when it was 17 minutes to go in the game. The game's not over right there. But if you're able to go up 9 there, and it never got past that like 3 possession plateau, UConn was kind of teetering on that 1 possession, 2 possession lead for the entire second half until that sequence of events that I just showed you. So it's little things, and the little things that didn't happen in this season is the reason why this Final Four potential team, because they showed it. Anybody that thinks this team didn't have Final Four potential didn't really watch this team and watch it through the eyes of a team that is not the favorite. But you don't have to be the best team to win it all. They were last year, and even arguably in 22-23 or 23-24. But, you know, I think you could argue as a 4 seed winning that NCAA tournament, you probably weren't the best team going in. You might have been the hottest team, and we've done that a few times. So this was like a different scenario. This team was not hot coming into this tournament, but the talent was there. And they really dug Florida into deep waters. And Florida, to their credit, man, they didn't panic. And then you could say at the end, they had Walter Clayton Jr. and we didn't. That's more of the sequence of events. For all those people that hate on Dan for calling out the officiating, it's just competitiveness. And I think when I've interviewed Jeremy Schaub, I've interviewed Ian O'Connor, guys who really know him and have spent time with him. And one of the things they say is Dan looks at the officials as being in his way. And it's not personal. It's he's trying to get this win, and he was fighting. He was coaching his ass off. They all were. Kamani, Luke, Tom. Like, they really were. They were like the perfect cut man in a corner man in a fight. Where, you know, what's that classic moment in Rocky IV? You know, I'm a dork. You know, I'm a big Rocky fan, and I know that's a cheesy movie, but some of those quotes are life lessons. You know, see, he's cut. He's not a man. He's not a machine. This Florida team was very good, but they were not a machine. This team had an opportunity to take them out, and they just didn't capitalize. And that's why this one hurts. We're going to take another short break and wrap this episode up on a day that the transfer portal opens. We're going to talk about, a little premature, but there's no rest for the weary. And unfortunately, my opening monologue, even though I got teary-eyed and upset about the game and all that went down, I think deservedly so. This could be a whole new cast of characters coming in next year, and let's talk about that and why this one hurts even more. Talking about that after the break. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Listen, you can do these curation, and it makes it for Game Time picks, and it makes it easier to find value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. For this NCAA tournament, I've made sure all of my UConn friends who aren't media like me were using Game Time and for all of their ticket needs, and they really enjoyed the experience. I've even sent a few people some Game Time codes in terms of, hey, you can use this for comedy. I know you're a big comedy fan. Go check this out. I know you're a big concert guy. Go check this out. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Last segment of the program. This one hurts, guys, no doubt about it. And to add insult to injury, a couple things. One, on the press conference, one of the things that Dan said really struck me, and I had the same thought after they lost, which is, if you look at the West bracket, St. John's had already lost. So they felt like if they beat Florida, then they would have regrouped and been like, this is a bracket for the taking. This could have been an absolute Final Four team if they beat Florida, because if you look at who is in this bracket, let's look this up and tell me if you think that any of these teams would have been favored against UConn and who's left over. Yeah, I mean, the West region, Maryland just made the Sweet 16, so it's set. So now it's Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, and Arkansas. I mean, if UConn beat Florida and they have Maryland, that's a 4 seed. It's a good Big Ten school. They got a really good squad. Derek Queen's fantastic. Another Monteverde kid. It would have been a tough game, but I like their chances there. They had to scrape it out against Colorado State at the buzzer. Then you have a Texas Tech team that beat Drake, and that was probably been the toughest team. But then Arkansas, who knows? Arkansas is super talented. They beat St. John's by 10, and they're playing their best ball right now. So it would have been a really interesting thought process that the bracket probably would have favored UConn. But that's all ifs and buts and candies and nuts. What a wonderful Christmas it would have been. But it's not for us to say. It also hurts because it's an ugly time of year. The transfer portal is now open. We're already starting to see some people that have entered the transfer portal. There's probably some folks that have been contacted already. I know for a fact that I've heard that, UConn is looking at a point guard, obviously, with Haas being gone and the uncertainty with Aiden Mahaney and Ahmad Noel. I know they have Braylon and Darius and Jacob Furphy coming in, but those guys are more wings and shooting guards. I think Darius can turn into a Tristan Newton type point guard at 6'5", 6'6". But I also think he's a freshman. And unless he comes in and dominates, which is possible, I know that Dan is not going to want to go into next season with that uncertainty and try to find himself a leader that he can trust. And so I've heard from Robert Wright to Baylor, another Monteverde kid, or, there's just a bunch. And what I would implore any of you guys to do is, if you're curious about, and I've asked coaches this, how does a transfer portal shape as it starts to shape? Who are the first kids that you call, whether it's legal or unlegal with tampering? I don't care. Everyone tampers, probably including UConn. I'm not sitting here saying that we're above that. But what I will say is, because if you think about it, when Dan talked about 50% of my roster, it means that people have already been contacted and they already have offers and they're already thinking about who they're going to play for next year. And this, I don't begrudge anyone from leaving. Jamar Jones, Jalen's dad, posted something on X yesterday, essentially saying, UConn was great, and the past tense was. So it's hard to believe, hard to not take those words as what they are. And UConn will always treat Jalen and Jamar like family. If they do end up going, best of luck. But if they stay, God, I think it would be great. I think Jalen has a big upside. I'm on the record as saying I thought he should have played a little more this year, but I get reasons why he didn't. I won't get into that. We're going to do a whole transfer portal show later this week, probably starting Tuesday, to be honest with you, and kind of see what the list is of who I think. And what I was going to finish that sentence before I got on the tangent is, every coach will tell you they're going to reach out to people they've recruited in the past. So if you take a look at anybody they've offered over the last 2 or 3 years, 3 years if they have 1 more year of eligibility, 2 years if maybe a guy's a junior, and see what the scenario is. I saw one already, Joseph Sonnen, who went to Arizona State, but was a UConn, got offered by UConn, got offered by Providence, amongst others. Shot 37% from 3, averaged 15 points a game. Big, strong kid. That's just one name that outside of Robert Wright. But he would. I'd have to look him up. I don't remember his game, But I do remember them being high on him. And let's see, I think he's a point guard. He's a guard. I mean, he's a combo guard. He's from Vermont. Josan Sainon averaged 12 points and 3 rebounds, shot 42%, 37% from 3. That's some big games. Obviously Arizona State's where Bobby is the head coach, at least for now. And I don't know how Dan would feel about poaching one of his brother's players, but since he's already in the portal, I don't really think it matters as much right now. But that's just an example of that. If you look at this roster, it's hard to believe it's going to look similar to what it looks like today. So, but I'm also going to say one more thing before I go. It's not a plea, whatever they want to do. I'm not going to be the guy that's like, Alex, come back. You should come back because you didn't play as well this year and your draft stock and all this, blah, 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 blah. If he does the NBA evaluation and they tell him he's a late first rounder, early second round pick, he should go, and he probably will. But if they say to him, man, it was a rough year for you and you may not get drafted, then he should come back. I mean, I think it's a pretty simple choice. If he doesn't want to come back and just wants to move on, I get that too. He's already got his degree, or maybe he's close to it. And I'm sure he's been good with his money. He's gotten paid handsomely at UConn, but he could always go the Armando Bacot route and come back for one more year and try to make the Final Four and make a couple $1 million or whatever it ends up being and make more money than he's going to make in the pros. But if the flip side is he's just over it and wants to move on, and this is a really intense couple of years, I understand that portion too. The other one is Liam. I think he showed a lot of guts and a lot of moxie in this game against Florida and showed that he can play against big-time opponents. But the bloom wasn't off the rose, in my opinion, at all with this kid. I do think, though, where he was an elite knockdown shooter, I think that started to wane a little bit. And I don't know if it was because of the length of the season where he was out for a while, so it took him a while to get back into kind of basketball shape from that perspective. People are going to laugh at that. That's soft and that he's a young kid and he should be able to run and blah, blah, blah. And like all the old guys do that. In my day, we ran uphill every day, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the old days. In the old days, you could, skate by because the defenders weren't as strong, they weren't as physical. The game has evolved, like regular life, there are bigger, faster people nowadays. I'm a huge fan of the old school basketball, 80s and 90s. I wish the product was better at the highest level in that respect, but the players are bigger, stronger, faster. And so if I was advising Liam, I would see if he's a lottery pick. If he's just a first round pick, maybe he stays. I said that to Dan Meehan, who I'm sure I'll have on this week at some point to give his perspective. But wouldn't it be pretty cool to have these incredible freshmen that are coming in, some of who are going to play right away, and some who are probably going to have to sit and learn, and having Alex and Liam back? Maybe Liam goes and we can get Jalen and Alex back, and there's your starting lineup. I don't know. I think Terrace is 50-50 because everybody's going to test the waters because there's so much money in the SEC and the Big Ten with football, and we haven't gotten the revenue sharing stuff yet where they're going to have to kind of taper back some of that. I mean, hell, even, Texas just got Sean Miller in a very not surprising move that he left Xavier, but you don't think they're going to have a $15 million roster? You don't think Duke's going to reload? Like, all of these teams have so much money to spend. Villanova, whoever they hire, it's a private school, man. I think they're going to really go for broke. And they didn't do it because, think about all the talent they had on this team. They couldn't make the NCAA tournament because their coaching was so bad. So there's a lot of factors. And we're going to dive into all that this week. It's an honor and privilege to be a small part of Locked On Podcast Network, but also, and more importantly, a part of UConn Nation. I'm not done for the season. We have the UConn women to think about. So there'll be a show later in the day as they get their second round game on tap. And then as we look towards the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, and potentially Tampa in the Final Four with the UConn women as they go for their 12th national title. But to close out the show, again, I want to thank the entire media department at UConn, Bobby Mullen. Thanks for putting up with all the emails and questions I had as a novice podcaster in this sphere. Really appreciate you putting up with my crap, and always there to help with anything that you need. All the people that I've met in this season has been kind of a whirlwind. It's pretty awesome. We almost have 11,000 subscribers on YouTube. I would love to kind of pump those numbers up and continue to make UConn the brand that it is, but also with the fans. I probably haven't even reached a third of the fan base. So if you haven't listened to a show or you know someone that would really love the show, make sure you're sharing the YouTube links. Make sure you're sharing the audio links. All right, I've gone on long enough. I love this team. It's always gonna be my passion, even if it's something I do every day. That's never gonna stop. Can't get rid of me. I'm sorry. Locked on UConn forever. Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.